Good morning. This is VirtualPBX dash admin training. Gonna give another minute or so just in case people are a little slow to join us today. The page you're seeing here is our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the main virtualpbx.com site. Just mouse over support, you'll see a pull down show up, and one of the options there is the dash login link, as well as you can get to the support pages to look at various guides and other videos we have. And it looks like it just hit 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and really dive in. Alright, so here is our dash login page. You're going to need your email address, and you should have gotten an email after you signed up with your password. Which you'll need here, and then your company name or your account name. Now, if you signed up for this for your personal use, then it would be probably your name. Now, if for some reason you don't remember your password or you didn't get that email, because the email gods did not want you to get it, you can click on the Forgot Your Info link down here at the bottom right. We still need your email address, and then we need either an account name or a phone number on the account. Then you would click reset password. This will send you an email, which will get you to log in, because it'll have a link to get you logged in. And then you would create a new password. After you create a password, that way the system will log you back out, so you can use your password here, and then you have the option here to click on Remember Me. Let's go ahead and get signed in. Alright, so on this account, I'm using a test account that's been around for 5 years plus. So it automatically takes me to my dashboard page. If it's your first time signing into Dash as an admin, for example, or you just signed up, what you're actually going to be taken to, is this page here, which is your user page, or user information. So this is where you would change your own email address or your own password, for example, as well as your time zone, etc. Also, on your first login, there will be a little wizard pop-up guiding you through various aspects of this page. You'll also have an account level setting here, and this is for admins. And the main thing that's changed here is the time zone, right? Make sure you're in the proper time zone for your facility. Some people will change their account name. Now, over here on the left, under where it says user, on a live account, you have additional information. Things like your service plan, your billing contact, where you can update that information. You can see your invoices. And there's something else I'm forgetting. But once you're done on this page here, go ahead and click on close up here at the top right, and we'll be back on our dashboard page. So up at the top, you can always click up on your name here. This will take you back to that account page, so if you need to change anything there. On most accounts, you have a little toggle here for DND, for Do Not Disturb. If it's white, that means DND is enabled. If it's all black, it means it's not. The reason I don't have it here is that my user is also in ACD queues, and so for staff members who are in ACD queues, that's been removed, so you don't accidentally mark yourself on Do Not Disturb, but being logged into a queue, because you wouldn't be offered calls in that scenario. Next up, we've got the question mark icon here. First, you got chat with us. This will open up a chat window, so you can talk to our support team and they can help you with whatever feature you're working with. Learn more. This will open up a new tab and take you to the support pages, so you can look at the specific guides of a feature you're looking for, as well as those videos I mentioned previously. Over here, we have the web phone link. Now, this only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user, but this will open up a new tab that goes to webphone.virtualpbx.net. And this allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls, right, using your internet connection. The web phone uses your dash login information, so it does need to be associated with your user. But beyond that, just Chrome or Firefox on a desktop or laptop computer, you can make and receive calls. Next, we have the online store. This takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you could buy things like a VoIP phone, a router, a headset, that sort of thing. And then we have the hamburger icon or the menu icon, right? 3 horizontal lines up here at the top right. So we're on the dashboard here, and then these are additional features of Dash. Some of them, like ACD queues, have additional fees associated with them. And anything that's plan specific or has fees, I'll try to make sure to call out. And then lastly, we have the little logout icon. Over here on the left, we have your dashboard, starting at the dashboard down. These are more core features of Dash. And then we're here in the middle, we got total users. I've got 19. Right, so these are people who make and receive calls on my account. They'll have voicemail, they have devices, etc. Depending on your plan, adding more users may increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of. Then we got total devices, 44, and I have a breakdown. So first up, we've got soft phone. Right, soft phone is just a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Technically, the web phone is a version of a soft phone that I mentioned previously, but the soft phone can be also like the VirtualPBX soft phone application for on Android or iOS, as well as on Windows or Mac OS. It could be another application from another company, like Counterpath. It's a company that has several different soft phone applications you could use. There's things like Zoipier, a few others that are out there. Actually, there are many others that are out there. Next up, we have cell phone. Right, that's pretty self-explanatory. Looks like I've got 12 or nope, 13. The web phone, which we talked about just a little bit. I have 11 of those. SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? So VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. SIP is a subtype of those kinds of phones. Basically just uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, but this is a physical phone, right? You can pick up a handset off of it and make and receive calls from there. And then lastly, I have landline. Now you notice down here, I have an unregistered devices section, and it says I have 23. So Dash knows when the VoIP devices are connected, registered, to us or not. And so this is telling me that I have 23 VoIP phones that I cannot make and receive calls from, right? The system says, hey, not registered, can't send a call to it. Right, and that can be anything from simply someone hasn't logged into their soft phone application, right? Or someone hasn't plugged in their phone. Could be something more complicated, like they have there's a network setting interfering with their phone, or more catastrophic would be they have no internet connection because their ISP is having an issue. Right, next up, we have total numbers. This is your number of phone numbers on the account. So this account has 30 phone numbers right now. Your account includes anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of your plan price that you pay on a monthly basis. If you go over that allotment, you're going to be paying an overage per number per month. That's going to range anywhere from $1.99 to $4.99 per month per phone number. That would depend on your plan. So if you have many phone numbers and you're wondering how much that's costing you, you're probably going to want to talk to our account services team so they can verify how many phone numbers are included as part of your plan, but also what your overage is per phone number. Then we have a breakdown between assigned numbers and spare numbers. All right, assigned number means it goes someplace on your account, right? Someone can dial it and expect to get to a person or a voicemail or get to a conference room or send a fax. Right? A spare number is on your account, right? Counts towards your allotment, but you're not using it right now. Right? It could be that you had a Mother's Day promotion going, and now that's Mother's Day has now passed in the U.S. So you don't want calls coming in on that phone number. You just put it in spare, right? Until you're going to use it for the next holiday you want to use it for, or promotion day. Likewise, it could be you got like 10 phone numbers that were all in sequence. You just haven't gotten to the last couple of them yet. Now, spare numbers again do count as part of your allotment of phone numbers, so you would be charged for it if you are over your allotment. The next breakdown is we have US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. US DID, that just means US local phone number, right? So I can have a phone number, say, in Cupertino, California. I can have phone numbers in Fort Worth, Texas, other way, go up to Aurora, Illinois, etc. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in acquiring them, you do need to email our porting team. So that's PORTING at VirtualPBX.com. And they'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. Now, some countries have additional requirements in order to get a number. Germany, for example, requires proof of presence within the city that you're requesting a number in, like a utility bill. Others don't care. Others are much more stringent. It's going to vary from country to country. Down here, we got conference bridges. I have 9. That means I have 9 users I've enabled the conference feature, meaning they can moderate or host a conference. Over here to the top right, we've got our main numbers. So these 4 phone numbers, they're all going to the same place. They all behave the same in the same fashion. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Then we've got our conference number. Now you can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but this phone number, everyone needs to call a conference number to get into the conference bridge, whether they're hosting a conference or just a participant. Fax box number, you can have one of these. This enables faxing on the account. This is your inbound fax number, i.e. that's the number people send faxes to. Then we've got the company directory, and this downloads a text file that has your users and their extension numbers, right? In case people like that have that paper or that document so they can refer to extension numbers. Then we've got the cell phone directory. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application, right? So the cell phone app on Windows or Mac OS. You would download this file and then upload it to the cell phone app on your computer. And this will allow you to see presence or the status of your staff members who are using the cell phone. Right, so I can pull up my cell phone and I can see, oh, my coworker Mike, he's not on a call, so that's good. That means I can give him a call real quick so we can talk about a customer we're working with. Right. Likewise, my boss Jeff could say, oh, he's on a call. I need to talk about something else. I'll have to wait, but he can then email me or Slack me saying, hey, I need to call you when you're available. All right, so our discount code, this is right here. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our store or online store, right? store.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly, we've got the realm. The account realm is used in a couple different things. One is used to program a third-party cell phone application, right? So something from Counterpath or even a VoIP phone that's not supported by us. It's one of 3 key pieces of information you'll need. The other thing it's used for is for faxing out. On Dash, sending a fax out is currently an email to fax process. So you create an email using the email address that is on your user. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. You don't need to click on the body, you don't need to type anything in the body of the email. The system's not going to look at it. Right? So basically, you send the email, the system gets the email, looks at the to field, says, okay, first part, this is where I'm sending to. The realm, that's where it's coming from. And then it goes to find an attachment. When it finds an attachment, it says, okay, this is what we're sending. You're going to translate this into an analog signal and send it out and send out a fax. That email, you can only have the one attachment, so you want to make sure if you don't have any signature files in your email, just one attachment with a PDF or a TIFF file. All right, up here at the top, you've got caller ID. Unfortunately, this pull down is not working, but you can use any of your main phone numbers and select it here. This becomes the default outbound caller ID for all your VoIP phones, whatever phone number you select here. And then we've got the company caller ID name. So you can put up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click Save Changes there at the bottom, this will then send that information out to the other carriers who support CNAME. A couple of caveats: not every carrier supports CNAME. Your calls can route through some of those carriers who don't support it, which means when the call gets to your destination, your CNAME information does not go through. Right? All we can do is send this information out and let the other carriers who support CNAME know. After that, once the call goes out, it's up to all the carriers in between, as well as, and most importantly, the carrier that the receiving device is on. Right? That final carrier has ultimate say about what shows up on the phone's displays that are within their network. Also, a caveat when making tests to cell phones, not all cell phone carriers support CNAM. Some of them do, but they require additional cost, right? Like I use AT&T, and I can get CNAM, but it's going to cost me, I think it's $10 a month extra. Personally, not worth it, so I don't pay it. Next up, we got the company emergency information, or E911. You want to put a physical address here. All right, this address then becomes associated with this phone number. So every phone number can have its own E911 address, which means you can then, on your VoIP devices, select which address you want that VoIP device associated with. So that way, if they pick up and dial 911, the right address shows up for emergency services. Any changes you make here, you want to click on Save Changes. Next up, we have hold music. Now, hold music on Dash is actually defined as after a call has reached a user and they have pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this file will play. You can upload your own file. Right, you just find it on your computer by clicking Browse. Dash will play back .wav, .wav, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're under 1 megabyte in size, and you want to make sure they're recorded in mono. Right, so because when you call in and listen to it over the phone, right, your phone has one speaker. So it's a mono-aural device. So you want to make sure you record in mono. If you upload a stereo file, it might play properly. We've had customers have that. I've experienced customers with a stereo file that they just got silence. Others get a lot of static. And the other advantage of recording it or making sure it's a mono file, it gives you more content, right? Because there's less data. So you find the file, you put the little upload icon here, the blue and white one with the up arrow. Once it completes updating, then you click on Save Changes. All right, hours is actually part of main number, so let's go over to main number and we'll just work our way down all the way through it. All right, so first up we got our main company numbers. You see here all of our main numbers. If I don't want to use a number as a main number any longer, I can click on a sign next to it. Right, so now that number is no longer a main number. It's still on my account, right? It's now a spare number, so I could use it someplace else if I want to. Now, if I want to buy a number or add a number from my spares, right, I can click here, Add from Spare Numbers. This is my available spare numbers I can add from. If I don't want to use any of those, let's say I'm moving into a new market somewhere, I can click on Buy Numbers. You have your option for local or toll-free. Toll-free, pretty easy. You select the toll-free prefix you want to use. You click on Search. You find the number. You click Add. You see here now I have one in my cart. It shows the number. I have the option to remove it, and then I can click Buy Numbers. Likewise for local, you need to search for the area code that you want to have a phone number. So let's see if 312 is inactive. Here we go. So I click Add on a number, right? Again, one in the cart. There's the number. I click Buy Numbers. System's verifying that the number was truly available. Then it's going to move it to my account and activate it. And then hopefully soon here, it will show up. There we go. So now this new 312 number is now one of my main numbers. You notice there's a little gear icon here to the right. You can click on that, and this is where you would update the caller ID. So here you can set up the outbound caller ID for that phone number, as well as turn on the ability to have that inbound caller ID name show up on your staff members' phones when people call in on this phone number. E911, right? So I can set up the specific address for this phone number. Prepend, this is a VoIP phone feature, so I can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on the phone's displays. All right, so I can say, right, add promo, and I click on Save Changes. So now the word promo will show up on my VoIP phone user's VoIP display when a call comes in off of this phone number. right? So they now know, oh, it's about this topic, right? Messaging, this is for making use of business SMS, right? Text messaging on your main numbers. Your account will need to have either Zapier integration or webhooks. That's something you probably wanted to check. Well, webhooks would show up here, and so then you should have a easy way to know if you have that on your account, but you can always check with our account services team. But basically, you need to link Dash to other software in order to make texting on a main number work. Next up, we got the office hours strategy. So you can be 24-hour open office, which is what the default is for new accounts. Many choose to go custom office hours. If you do, for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of it, right? You just simply click in front of it. And then in the boxes here to the right, you establish your open hours in 24-hour or military time. And then at the bottom, which I don't know if it's showing up properly on YouTube, you also have the option to say if you're closed for lunch, put a check mark if you are, and then you include your lunch hours. And then you would click on Save Changes. Office holidays, put a check mark if you're closed for holidays. And then over here to the right, you click on Add Holiday. You have the option for single day, date range, and advanced. Oops, did not mean to do that. All right, so single day is like here for President's Day. So anything that you click under Add Holiday, it creates a new row. You give it a name, and then you select the month and the day that it applies. Right, for date range, so we have up here for Christmas. You got to give it a name. You give a start date and an end date. The main caveat here is that you do not want a date range that includes a New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, mostly because there's not a year indicator here. So the system would just put you in after hours mode all year. So just for those 2 days, you would want to do like we have here, where we have New Year's Eve, we have New Year's and New Year's Eve, right? So 2 single day entries. Now for advanced, that's what this retreat option here is about, where I'm saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're closed, right? It's company picnic day, right? So first column here is you know every month of the year. This middle pull down is 1st through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week. And again, any changes, you would click on Save Changes. Next up, we've got incoming call handling. Now, this is for these 4 main numbers we have up here. When calls come through during my open hours, I'm having it go to my virtual receptionist. Notice I have tabs here for lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. So I can have different options, or I can have the calls route differently for these different times. All right. So open hours, calls going to my virtual receptionist, sometimes referred to as an auto attendant for those of you who are used to PBX systems. So on the left, we've got our main menu. Right, this is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. You would click on Add Route here at the bottom. This allows you then to select 0 through 9 as well as star. You see I have 0 and star already denoted, and then where you want that call to go. Now if we go up here, you see this is a huge pull down just because this account has been around for a while. First up is Smart Directory, right? So you basically shunt a call into a dial by name directory. Users, you can have a menu option go straight to a specific person. Call queues, again, a menu option goes to one of your call queues. Now call queues, right, that's a ACD queue that has an additional fee associated with it. Devices, you can have calls go to a specific phone, right? SIP phone, cell phone, whatever. Not always recommended, just because if the phone doesn't have voicemail, or that voicemail doesn't pick up in time, then the call simply ends at some point, which may not be a positive experience for your customer. Then you got a media file, right? So you can have a greeting file play, right? So like your hours of operation or directions. However, again, once the media file stops playing, the call ends. So again, maybe not the best option. Groups, these are for, shorthand for ring groups. Ring groups and ACD queues are somewhat related. Groups are included as part of your plan. basically allow you to have calls ring to a group of people, right? Department. ACD queues have more routing options and slightly more versatility in some respects. So you may have to choose between those, but for most people, it's not a bad idea to start off with groups and see if that works for you, and if not, then you can decide if you want to go with queues. Advanced call flows, these are additional auto attendants or secondary auto attendants. So this would be if you're making use of submenuing, right? So like for instance, you're saying press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You can then have menu options 1 and 2 go to secondary attendants where another greeting plays, right? So like when they press 2, they would hear a Spanish greeting, and then the menu options that they would be given would go to your Spanish speaking staff members, for example. So it's a secondary menu. And then you've got the option to go to a specific voicemail box. All right, over here on greetings, you have various types of greeting options. The first up here is text-to-speech, right, TTS. You simply type in a greeting, and then you would click update, scroll down and click save, and then save changes. The text-to-speech greeting is limited to about between 250 to 350 characters, depending on how complicated the greeting is. It's a good starting point for a startup company, for example, or someone who's not used to ever dealing with a PBX system and they're just not sure how they're going to have calls route. One thing to keep in mind is every time you save a text-to-speech greeting, it saves it with the same file name, right? So it will always, so we're in our open hours. If I clicked, I type in something new, I click update, save changes, the system will then create a file called main open hours menu TTS. Right now, if I go in there tomorrow, I make a change to the text greeting, I click update, save, and save again. It saves another file, but with that same name. So what I recommend is when you do a text-to-speech greeting, after you're done with the greetings, you want to, over here on the left, click on the greetings manager, find that file and rename it to something you'll recognize. So that way, if you need to make a change, but then need to go back to it, you can easily find it. Next up, you can upload your own file. Right? Choose your file. Basically, find the file on your computer. .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. So I could use this one if I wanted to. Then you would just click update, which means it will upload it to the system. You can choose from existing recordings. So this can be from, this will be a pull down showing all your various recordings on the account. This will include voicemail greetings, as well as a media file for like hold music or ringback for a group, that sort of thing. Again, which is why it's important to make sure you rename a main menu TTS so you can find it easily. All right, next we have it recorded over the phone. Now, when it says this right here, right, pick up a phone registered to this account. What that means is you have to use a VoIP phone on this account. That's the default. The system wants you to use a VoIP phone because it knows that it's registered, right? So, oh, it's connected, it's part of this system, right? It's a security feature. Now, if you don't want to do that, let's say you got a friend with that good radio voice, then you would go down here under settings and make sure allow outside recording is turned on. This allows someone to call in from a cell phone or a landline and record over the phone, right? They'll need this PIN number, and this PIN number is specific to this time of day. Right, so this PIN number I can use to change, it's for my open hours, which means it only works during my open hours. Right, so I have to be in open hours to be able to change my main open hours greeting. The same would apply for after hours, lunch hours, etc. When you record over the phone, if it's a brand new account, right, the system will tell you that there's no recording set up for this menu. That's when you would enter the PIN number, and then the system will walk you through recording it over the phone. If you already have a file in place, right? So you're an established account with us. You've been using it for months, maybe years. You're like, oh, we need to change the greeting up. Things have changed. When you call in, you hear that main greeting play. You can enter the PIN number at that time. However, when you do that and you record a new greeting, the system overwrites the main greeting that was already in existence or in use, right? So I have greeting A is playing, I call in, I enter my PIN number, I record a new greeting, right? Greeting file, the file name, greeting file A, right? That stays the same, I just overwrote the content. So if the main greeting you have right now is your standard greeting that you want to use for 80% of the year, you probably want to unassign it as your greeting when you call in to record over the phone, or simply upload a new greeting. All right, next up, we've got professional recording services. When you click order here at the bottom right, this will take you to Snap Recordings. They have roughly 100 actors, voice actors, and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, like UK English, Australian English, as well as American English. They also, I think they have different versions of Spanish and French as well, which means you can also do multilingual greetings. They also have things what they refer to as hold treatment, which is like a music file with a script being read. They handle their own billing, typically via credit card. They will typically deliver via email. So then once you get the file, you would just upload your own file. All right, next up we have these settings. So number of retries on missed dial. Right, so what this is how many times are you giving that inbound caller a chance to enter a menu option, or how many times can they make a mistake, right? So I call in, and let's see here. Oh, number 4. So number 4 is not a valid option. So let's say I call in, I press 4. By default, the system will say invalid entry. It'll replay the greeting and allow me to make another attempt, right? Because this is set to 1. Now, after that second attempt, right, it's going to then send me to my default route, which is the Smart PBX directory. If I don't have a default route, the system will end the call. All right. Next up is dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the person is done, right? So I press 4, the system is going to wait till a count of 10 goes, oh, that's what they meant, and then play that invalid entry message. Right, now this is useful. I usually recommend customers put it around anywhere from 2 to 5, because if someone knows an extension number, they'll probably enter it in pretty quickly for the most part. But just in case you're looking at a piece of paper, it gives them a little bit more time for each button press. All right, allow outside recording. Again, that's to allow a cell phone or landline user to call in and be able to record your main greeting, assuming they know the PIN number. Allow dialing to extensions. If this is on, that means when someone gets to this virtual receptionist, they can enter an extension number if they know it, right? So if I turn this off, that means the inbound caller, they can only press one of these menu options, right? They're not able to enter in Bob's extension even if they know it, right? And then lastly here, we got suppress playing of invalid entry. So as I mentioned before, if I called in and I press 4, the system will automatically say, invalid entry, and then play the main greeting. If you don't want that message to play, you would just make sure this is turned on. So now that error message doesn't play. Any changes you make, whether it's under the main menu, the greetings, or your settings, you click save here, and you also need to click save changes under incoming call handling. Now, this second option here, this is your live operator option, right? So call is being sent to Aaron. If Aaron doesn't pick up, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Right, now this is a pull down, which I'm sure you all recognized, right? So you can send it to any specific user. You can send it to a device, right? You can send it to, I believe you can send it to a media file as well. Yep, you can send it to a media file. I don't recommend that just because that means your inbound caller will hear 2 greetings, and that can be confusing depending on the greeting files you selected at both stops or places. Further down, you can send it to a group, right? So like you can send it to your receptionist group, right? This would be like I could have 5 people in this group, call comes in, it's gonna ring to them for 20 seconds, right? That's a limitation of the second and third options here. This is when it offers calls to a group or a person or a queue. It rings for 20 seconds. After that, it will then go to the virtual receptionist. Now, I'm still under my open hours, so this is that same virtual receptionist we were just looking at. versus like if I go to, say, go after hours, if I click on this virtual receptionist, right, it's a slightly different menu, right, and you would have a different greeting. Oops. Okay. So then I would save changes here. All right, third option, call being offered to that receptionist group. If they don't pick up, it's instead going to Aaron's voicemail box, right? So again, it's still a live operator option, but instead of going to the virtual receptionist, they're just going sent to voicemail. Now, what you can see, or what I have seen on customers, is on holidays, right? They go down to this last option, which is specific to this call routing option, right? Where it's saying, okay, instead of offering it to a person or a group or anything like that, I'm saying, nope, just send the call straight to voicemail, and then the inbound caller can leave a voicemail message. Last option here, this is going to one of my alternate attendants, right? Advanced call flow, so I can set it to a secondary attendant if I wanted to. Now, each of these virtual reception, if you use virtual receptionists on all of these, right, then you can have different greeting files and different menu options for each one. All right. Next up, we got the main conference number. Again, you can add from spare numbers, you can buy new numbers, and it'll put it right on this spot here. You can do a custom greeting. This is a custom text-to-speech greeting. Even if you don't have this enabled, this system will say welcome to the conference and then prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. And again, you have that 250 to 350 character limit. Right now, there's no option to upload your own MP3 or WAV or OGG file for the conference room. Main fax box number, you can have just the one. So if you don't have one here, you would have the links here for add from spare or buy new. Now, unfortunately, on this account, the fax box is broken just because it was a test account. But on your accounts, when you click on Edit Fax Box, it will open up a new window, and there'll be two fields in that window. The first field is for inbound notification. You just put an email address in here, and then whenever a fax comes in, that email address gets an email saying, hey, you got a fax, and there'll be a PDF attachment so they can view the fax. Just as a warning, or something we've noticed is if someone calls your fax box number, right, and then they hear those fax tones and they hang up, right, say, oh, wrong number, that will still generate an email saying you had an unsuccessful inbound fax attempt. So that's something to be aware of. Now, in that second field, after you click on Edit Fax Box, that's for your outbound permissions. So you can put a specific email address there. However, it's mostly designed to put in your company domain name, right? So if you own the domain at abccleaners.com and all your staff members have an email address that end at abccleaners.com, you could put that in the outbound permissions. Then all of your staff members are able to fax out, even if they're not a user on the Dash account, right? They just have to use their email that ends at abccleaners.com, and then the correct format. All right, next up we have auto attendance. I've kind of touched on this before. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans, but not all. If this ends up being something you're interested in, you're going to want to talk to our account services team to make sure you're on the right plan. So there's two use cases that we typically encounter for multiple auto attendants. One I already touched on, right? That's the submenuing, where you want your main menu to have options where it can go to have an additional greeting file play and additional menu options for after they press that initial menu option. The second case, which is probably the more common, is you have additional businesses, right? So, and these additional businesses, they have their own main numbers, they have their own main greeting, right? But you're going to have the same staff members answer calls among these various businesses, right? So you have like a dog walking business and a cleaning business. They would both have their own different phone numbers. They'd have, I would hope, very different main greetings. But you can have the same staff members answer calls for both of these companies. So if you wanted to do that, you would start up here at the top and click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number, and then you click on Create Attendant. Now, if you're going to have a standalone attendant, then you can just go over to phone numbers. You can either add from spare or buy new numbers. And then you can always click on the extension box, right? You can add additional extensions or change the extension number. And then you click on the wrench icon here under Settings. And then here you say, okay, here are my open hours, and I have a virtual receptionist. See, I have my own main menu here. Go into these options, as well as I have my own main greeting and these settings as well. Now you notice I do have lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. These times match what you set up under your main number. So if I wanted this Jade business here to have its own separate set of hours, right? Let's say I want this one to be open 24/7, 365, right? So not closed ever. I would either need to have this as a separate account, or talk to our account services team to see if they can do customized work on your account to have the separate business still be on the same account. That usually requires a setup fee, a one-time setup fee. Now, if instead you want your attendant to be a menu option on either your main number or even under another attendant, you want to click on the name and you want to make sure it says available in main menu. If you click on it, it'll flip it back. It'll flip it to say unavailable in main menu, right? Click it again. So when it's unavailable in main menu, it's a standalone, right? You can only get to it from a phone number, or if a staff member transfers to the extension number, right? If you put available in main menu, this can now be a main menu option, under say this Jade attendant or even under my main number. You still could add a phone number to it if you wanted to, right? It would have an extension number. You click on the settings, orange icon, and again, you still have the options for you have the hours of operation, as well as the virtual receptionist, where again you have a menu option, and then you can have a greeting file play. All right, next up we have devices. So devices are where calls end up for your staff members, right? It's what they use to answer calls and make calls out. So green means it's connected, meaning we can send a call to it. Right? Red means it's not connected or not registered, so we can't send a call to it. Black means you've turned it off, right? You can click on, it'll turn green. And then we'll go back. Adding a device up here at the top. We'll start here with SIP phone. Again, this is that physical VoIP phone, so it's on a desk or table or cabinet, what have you. You have these various manufacturers that we support what's called auto provisioning. If you click on a manufacturer, you'll see there's various model numbers you can select from. For each one, some have more than others. Mobile High doesn't have that many. Same with HTech and Grandstream. And then we have Cisco, which is kind of in the middle. Now, once you find your phone model that you want to use, you need to give it a name, right? So you can say Aaron's phone. And then you need to enter the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. It's typically a sticker on the back of the phone, or if you have the phone plugged in under menu status or like basic settings, it should show up under there, and you would enter that information here. And then you would click on create device. After that, within the dashboard, the only other thing you need to do is assign that device to a person, right? One of your staff members. However, you're actually not done. You need to log into that phone's web user interface, the web UI, and then you need to enter in a URL under the auto provisioning section, right? Basically tell, hey, phone, go to this URL. It will then get its config file. The phone will reboot several times, and then it will show up as a green device. For the specifics of that, under the dash support pages, on the right-hand side, about a third of the way down, under VoIP phones, you're looking for the document called auto provisioning phones. It will have screenshots, it'll give you the specific URL, as well as additional settings to make sure that they match how we need it to be. And then you're all set. All right, cell phone and landline are basically the same. You give it a name, right? So you can say Bobby's phone, and then you put the phone number. Now you need the plus sign, the number one, the area code and phone number, and then you click on create device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, right, that phone will ring. You see, this is the base setup here. When you pick up the phone, you'll hear messaging. This is a forwarded call. Please press 1. Right? When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. It will then connect that inbound call to you. You can then talk to the customer. Now, that doesn't work in every situation. For instance, let's say you're actually using this cell phone to send calls to an automated answering service to handle your calls for after hours. That automated answering service can't press 1, right? It's essentially a computer, and it's just saying, hey, I have a phone call. It tries to pick up, and our system's waiting for a button press, whereas your automated answering service doesn't know what to do. It's just waiting for a call, or it itself is probably waiting for a button press to navigate through its phone system. In that kind of scenario, what you would want to do, right here, let's go back, find the phone, click on the little wrench icon here, go to advanced, and then select options. And this first one here, you want to put a check mark in front of, allow use of cell phone's voicemail or landline's voicemail. What this does is now you no longer, now when we send the call to this device, we no longer wait for you to press 1. Instead, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. So when we're sending your call to your automated answering service, it picks up, it then handles the call. If this is actually going to your cell phone, right, and you don't answer the call, but your cell phone voicemail picks up, then that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people, that's what they want. Other people, it's a big no, right? So that's a personal preference thing. The other thing that comes up is the second option here. Right, keep original caller ID. So, let's say customer Mary is calling in. She gets to your user. It's ringing your cell phone. On your cell phone display, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. You're tired of hearing all these calls about extending your auto warranty. So you're like, nope, you're going to voicemail. Don't want to deal with you right now. Later, you check your voicemail. You try to contact Mary, and you're never able to. So you potentially lost business. What you can do is uncheck this. So now when the call comes through, instead of seeing Mary's phone number on your phone, you see your main number. What do I mean by that? Let's close this out. If we go back to the dashboard and click on the caller ID, it's this phone number that would show up on my cell phone when an inbound call comes in. So now I know, oh, this is a work call. Let me pick it up and then hopefully make the sale. Right, soft phone, when you add a soft phone on the devices page, first you get this little warning message. Basically it's saying, hey, because of wireless VoIP technology, you may not be at the location that your E911 address is associated with, so you probably don't want to call 911 from the VoIP device, or at least be careful when you do. Click on close. And now here, you give it a device name, you would click on create device. This is set up as a third-party soft phone. You could use this to program, say, a soft phone application from Counterpath. You could also use this to program a VoIP phone that didn't show up under that SIP phone list. Right, you still need a device name. You would copy and paste the SIP username. You do not want to change this. Click on the SIP password box. Again, copy and paste this because you do not want to change that. And then you also need the account realm. Those 3 pieces of information are what you're going to need to make sure to get that third-party application or device to work with us. And then you would click on create device and program your phone. We do have some guides for third-party applications and devices on the support pages, but not a lot of them, just because there's way too many soft phone applications and phone models out there in the world. Landline is basically the same. Web phone you can add here. I don't typically recommend it because the web phone needs the user's login information to be able to log in. So you give it a name, you click on create device, you still need to add it to a user before it can actually be used. And we'll cover that a little bit more under users. You can click on the wrench icon next to any phone, right? You can look at the config, but under advanced, actually, let's go to the physical root phone here. Right, here's where you can set up the external caller ID, so you can select a different phone number for it. But the main thing is the emergency caller ID, so you can select one of your other phone numbers. So you can select one of these numbers and it'll use the address associated with that phone number. Alright, the greetings manager. This shows all your greetings on your account, whether they're voicemail greetings, main greetings, hold music, that sort of thing. Basically, it's your media manager. You can add a file by clicking add up here. Just give it a name, find the file on your computer. .wave.mp3.ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then click on create greeting. It will upload it and add it here. Here you got the file names. Source is upload, means you uploaded a file, right? TTS means it was a text-to-speech greeting, and recording means you recorded over the phone. You can download these files to listen to them to make sure they're still relevant or that you want to keep them. If you click on the little wrench icon, you can then click here to change the name or delete the file if it's no longer something you want, or you're just doing some house cleaning, because like I have 54, which is kind of a lot. Alright, groups. This is for departments. Right? You want calls to go to a group of people all at once or in sequence. Up here, you click at the top, you click add group, you give it a name and an extension number, and then you click and drag the staff members you want to be in the group, and then you will click on create group. Once a group's created, you can click on the name. Right, you can always change the name, and then you have this group call attempts. This is basically, you're telling the system how many times to offer the calls to your staff members, right? So inbound call comes to my receptionist, or my receptionist group, I should say, and I'm telling the system, hey, offer it to my staff members twice. Now, this is only gonna work if the inbound caller entered the extension number directly for this group, they were transferred to this group from another staff member, or it was a menu option from an auto attendant or virtual receptionist. Right now, if you remember, under the main number, under the incoming caller ID, or incoming caller, incoming call handling. Wow, excuse me. You had those different routing options, right? The second and third, in particular, where you can actually send it to a group. The group call attempts would not apply, right? The system would just offer it to the group people for 20 seconds. Now, if you click on the members box here, you see my staff members who are in this group. And actually, it's not, looks like it's not showing properly, so let me go up to, right, so you see my staff members, it's sending calls to them in this order. Along the top here, these are timestamps, and this last one here you can edit, right? So you can change it to 60 seconds or 600. Now, if I want to change the orders that the calls are going to route to people, right, I just click and drag on people and I can move them around, and then I would click distribute. Right, so now it's going in this new order. These are sliders, so I can actually do something like this. I'm going to set up what's referred to as blast ringing or ring all. So now when a call comes in, whoops, it's going to ring all my staff members, right, at the same time until one of them picks up. Now, say a call comes in and David picks up, right? So he's helping a customer. The second call comes in, he will hear call waiting in his ear, right, on his headset, until one of his other staff members or coworkers picks up, right? If I have multiple devices, right, then all my devices will ring, assuming I'm not already on a call. Right, so that first call comes in, David, let's say he's got 5 devices, all 5 of them will ring until he picks up on one of them. And this will supersede the user feature follow me, right? It will just ring all your active devices or connected devices. Right. In groups, you can take calls on cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. The system is doesn't care, I guess, at that point. However, currently on ACD queues, for example, you can only receive calls on a VoIP phone, right? So, soft phone, web phone, or SIP phone. So that would be one of those key differences between groups and queues. You can click on the extension box, so you can unassign an extension or add a new extension number. Up here, like we see on this Jade test group, he has its own phone number. You can add from spare, or you can buy new numbers. Now, if you have a phone number on a group, that means that this group is essentially available 24/7, right? Calls that come in on this 702 phone number, they're not going to pay attention to my open hours, my lunch hours, my holidays. It's just, call comes in, it's going to be offered to the group member or members. Right, so the way around that would be if you have multiple auto attendants, you can then unassign this phone number, create an attendant, then assign that phone number to that attendant, and then have the default or only route go to this group. And that way, the attendant will follow your main open hours, and calls will still go to the right group, but only during your open hours, for example. All right, groups have features, so we'll click on that box. So ringback, this is essentially a hold music file. You would upload a .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. The main thing to remember is about this file, it needs to play the duration of the file, right? So how long it plays, it needs to match the total ring time of the group. The system will not loop the file for you. So default for groups under 20 seconds. So you need a 2-minute file. Next action, if you enable this, if no one answers the calls, where you can send the caller to. In this case, I'm sending it to a voicemail box, but you see I have this huge pull down. I can send them back to my virtual receptionist, the main open hours. I can send it to one of my other attendants. I can send it to an ACD queue. I can send it to a specific device, another group, and a specific user, and then voicemail boxes. Allow call forward. If this is enabled, that means you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal desk phone, so they're going to forward to their cell phone, for example. And then caller ID prepend. Again, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on the VoIP phone's displays. So just to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. Especially useful if you have staff members who are in multiple groups or queues, or multiple roles. I guess is probably a better way to say that. All right, next up we have numbers. So first you have your numbers in use, so you're seeing where all your numbers go. Then you have your spare numbers, so these are the numbers you're not currently using. If you want to get rid of a phone number, right, so you want to save money on your bill, keep an eye up here where it says numbers and there's that buy icon. When I click on the box in front of a phone number, now I have the option to delete it. Confirm the deletion. It says continue, and now I have one less phone number on my account. Now, I can buy more numbers here, local and toll free. In this case, it would just put them in my spare number pool, and then if I need to put them somewhere else, I would choose add from spare numbers. You also have the option here to port a number. And you click on new port request. So port a number just means move a number from one carrier to another, right? So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You would type in a name here, just something you can recognize as pretty much for your use. You choose US toll-free or local. You click next, and now the system wants you to upload a PDF of your most recent bill from the current carrier. Afterwards, it will then ask you to enter in the the billing address, actually for the phone numbers that you're going to port, or phone numbers, as well as the billing address associated with those numbers. It will then give you the opportunity to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA. That does need to be filled out and signed, and then you would upload it to the system. There's a number of checkboxes you need to check off, just basically saying, hey, you're not going to cancel either account until the port completes, among a few other things. And then you would submit the files. There should be an upload progress bar. Once that's done, you should get an email right away saying you've submitted your port documents. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we did actually get the documents, and yes, your port has been fully submitted now, plus additional information about what to expect. If for some reason, like the progress bar didn't complete, or you're not sure that it didn't go through, or you didn't get the 2 emails, definitely contact our porting team, right? porting at virtualpbx.com. You can simply email saying, hey, did my port go through? Or if you know it didn't go through, you can just attach the completed and signed LOA and the bill copy to that email saying, hey, please port these numbers. We can still process the port that way. In terms of the LOA, it asks for your company information, for example. That should match what your current carrier has on file for the phone number, right? So in this case, I was saying AT&T. It'd be whatever AT&T has on file for whatever phone numbers you're porting to us. It does ask for the authorized person's name, which you can type out, and then that person's signature. It can be a physical signature. It could be, a media, like a JPEG of that signature, right? So or electronic signature, right? But simply typing the person's name twice will result in a rejection. For mobile numbers, it will likely need what's called an account PIN number. This is something you do have to get from your mobile carrier. This is a security feature for mobile phone numbers, because when you port a number from your cell phone, for example, right, that cell phone will no longer work because it doesn't have a phone number associated with it, and it's instead now in your Dash account, right? So cell phone carriers don't want their cell phones to stop working unless you're aware of it ahead of time. And then if you want to keep using that cell phone, you would then need to get a new phone number from your cell phone carrier. All right. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about anywhere from 3 to 7 business days to complete. I think it averages right around 5 to 7. And that assumes there's nothing wrong with the documentation that we got from you, right? If we get local numbers can take 1 day, like a Google Voice number. I've seen those port in 1 day. Usually it's in the 2 to 3 week range for most carriers. If we get a rejection, we don't always get specifics. In fact, most of the time we get like the address isn't right or unauthorized signature. They won't tell us what the correct information should be. They just say, hey, it's wrong. We would then send that information to you, letting you know, hey, we got this error message. That means you need to confirm with your current carrier what this information should be, whether that's the who the authorized person is, or what the correct address is. All right, now we got users. Click on Add Users here at the top. Again, depending on your plan, adding a user may increase your bill. You enter their first and last name, an email address used for login. That needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't repeat that email address. Then you create a password, and then the extension number, right? This will be the default extension number for this person. The system here is suggesting 1008 because I started with extension 1000. You can change this, right? I can make it 4210 if I wanted to. Then we got the options down here. So create a voicemail box for the user. By default, this is checked. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create a user and then I add a Yealink T21PE2 VoIP phone to this user. They could pick up that VoIP phone, hit *98. That will log them directly into their own voicemail box. The first time they do that, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box, as well as to then record a voicemail greeting. Likewise, that voicemail box would be what would cause the VoIP phone to register when there's a voicemail in the voicemail box. Now, next up we got include the user in the company directory, right? The Smart PBX directory. You can change your mind there. Send emails to alternate address. So by default, when say a voicemail comes into this user, right, it will be that a notification will be sent to the email address used for login, and by default it will be attached, so they can just double click on the attachment. But if you put this here, put a check mark in front of send to an alternate address and put another email address here, this system would instead send the voicemails to the secondary address that you specify. The same would happen for a password recovery. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I do recommend doing that. When you're done, you click on create user. That person then gets an email saying, hey, here's your login information. That's their login to Dash, right? So dash.virtualpbx.com. If they're just a standard user, that means you're going right to the user portal, which we'll get to later. Now, when a user is created, you see here some people have a little blue suit and other people don't. The blue suit icon means they are a system admin. If you click on a person's name, you can change their name. You can change their credentials, right? So their email address or their password. You also have the option here to just send them the password reset email. This is the voicemail box pin. For your VoIP phone users, again, you don't have to create one for them. For your cell phone and landline users, you do need to create at least a 4-digit pin for them. All right, here's your option to send to an alternate address, as well as to be in the company directory. Over here on the right, where it says admin, this is actually a pull down, so I could change Aaron back to a user if I wanted to. Then we've got the time zone. Right, so you can do a search and find the appropriate time zone for the user. Then is the default language that just shows up on the Dash web pages. You have English, French, German, or Russian. Then we have ringing timeout. This is how much time the system will try to ring the devices on a user. The default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time to say a VoIP phone or a landline. If Aaron was using cell phones, I would want to increase this to at least 45 seconds, if not 60. And simply because it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does, say, to a landline. For instance, and how PBX systems in general works, right? Call comes into the PBX system, goes to a user, and then we're trying to reach those devices. So when we're trying to reach a landline, we send the call out to the landline telecom. They say, oh, we know exactly where that is. Boom, sends it right to it. Whereas when a PBX system sends a call out to a cell phone provider says, hold up, we need to find them first, right? Pings the cell phone towers, finds you, then says, all right, send the call through, and then the call through and gets to you. But it's that delay in terms of finding you first is why you need more time for the ringing timeout for a cell phone user than you would for a landline user. All right, the extension box, you can have users with multiple extensions if you want to. The only logical case I've seen for that, or at least the most sensible one I've seen so far, is occasionally, like if you lose a staff member, the manager takes over that staff member's extension, so that way they can make sure any inbound calls or voicemails that they can then be recovered to make sure no business is lost. Users can have their own phone number, right? You can add from spare, buy new. They can have multiple phone numbers if you want. Devices, you can add devices to a user. So let's go with cat here. So if I click on, oh, it's not going to show up. All right. So you can add SIP phone, cell phone, soft phone, etc. You have all the same options as you did under devices. However, under soft phone, you notice I have another option here. At the very bottom, it says use third-party application. It's grayed out. If I click on that, it flips it to say use VirtualPBX application. And I just give it a device name. I click on create device. And then I would click on save changes. Once I do that, I've added a VirtualPBX soft phone to Jade here. Jade will then get an email with the login information for that app, right? Whether he's using it on a Windows or Mac PC or an Android or iPhone. Right now, the soft phone app uses different login information than your Dash login. Then you simply just download the file, log in, and you can use the app. The other thing, again, I find it easier to add the web phone directly to a user because all you're doing is adding their name, click on create device, click on save changes, and now they can log into the web phone. All right. There are user features. First up is caller ID number. This only applies to a user that has their own phone number because they have to select that phone number. So you turn it on, select the phone number, click save changes. So now whenever this user makes an outbound call, the caller ID that shows up is their phone number, right? Instead of the main company number. You would also need this if you want to use SMS on a user. However, if you're doing texting to a user, right? They have to have their own phone number. They can only have one device, and that device is the VirtualPBX cell phone application. They cannot have call forwarding enabled. They cannot have follow me enabled. And then if you click on the phone number box here, you would see here, you would click on the gear icon to make sure messaging is also enabled. Right? Once you have all those steps, then you can have texting come to this user. Right now, it would not work because I have multiple devices, and B, I have follow me enabled. So texting would not work right now. Call forwarding. Now, call forwarding is something your users can set up themselves. They don't need you to do it. You can do it for them, obviously, because you're an admin. But call forwarding has 3 modes, right? Off, on, and failover. Now, failover you would have to set up for them, but if they just want to turn it on, they can do that through their user portal. They can also do it from their VoIP phones. But when it's turned on, you select a mobile or desk phone, you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on Save Changes. This phone number that you're sending calls to should not be a device already on the user, right? Because if you already have the user has their cell phone as a device, then you don't need to forward it to their cell phone because it's one of their devices already. Hot desking. This is a VoIP feature for use when, say, you're in a shared office environment where you may not be at the same desk every day. In fact, you may not be in the office every day considering we're coming out of a pandemic. So, today's Tuesday. I come into the office. I sit at desk number 7. I pick up the VoIP phone there. I hit *11. That toggles on hot desking. The system will ask me for my hot desk ID, which I just noted here. And then the system says calls will be sent to this device. I hang up. Now for the rest of my workday, any call that comes to my user, whether I'm in a group, a queue, or whatever, is going to bring out the phone I'm sitting at. End of my day, I pick up the handset, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, and I go home. Say the next time I come in the office is Friday, and someone's already sitting at desk number 7. I'm like, okay, whatever. Desk 42, you're it. I sit down, I do the same thing. Hit *11, enter my hot desk ID, and now calls are coming to me at this desk that I'm sitting at. Voicemail box. Again, this is enabled because it was created with the user. Now, by default, it looks like this. So, call comes in, it leaves a voicemail, and the system will send an email with an attachment, right? So I can just double click on the attachment and listen to the voicemail. Now, voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages. So if you have staff members who aren't good about clearing out their voicemail boxes, or you run across it later, then what you can do is delete the message after notification, right? So after the system sends out that email, it deletes it from the voicemail box on the system. So then, the voicemail box or voicemail lamp on your VoIP phone won't have an indicator. And then they can still listen to the voicemail on their email. And likely you have more storage on your local computer than you do with just 100 messages in the voicemail box. Transcription is available on some plans, basically meaning the system listens to the voicemail and tries its best to type it out for you in text format. That is plan specific, so you'd want to check with account services if that's something you want to have. Fax box, users can have their own fax box. When you enable it, you have the option to select a phone number, either from spare number, buy a new number, or you can select an extension. Now, if you select an extension, that means that fax box is only good for inbound faxing. In fact, that means that person can only accept inbound faxes. They're not going to be able to send a fax out, even if you have a main fax box. Because what happens is, when you set up a fax box on the user, that takes precedence over the main fax box. And if you have it set up to an extension number, it tries to fax out using that extension number as a caller ID. Well, to send a caller ID out, you need to have a 10-digit phone number. Additionally, in terms of faxing to an extension, on the inbound side, the person faxing to this person, right, needs to call the main number, wait for the greeting, then enter the fax box extension number, and then click send fax. That works on an analog fax machine, right? They can either have a handset or a speaker. Some fax machines, you can enter the phone number and put like ** or comma to have a pause, and then the extension number. However, electronic fax services may not allow you to fax to an extension number, right? They may only allow you to fax to a phone number. So that's something to keep in mind. But beyond that, if you do have a phone number on the user, then they can send inbound and outbound faxes. They would just get them on this phone number instead of the main fax box number. Conference bridge. If you enable a conference bridge as an admin, the only thing you need to do is enter a PIN number. Right, by default, the system's going to use the conference room number will match the extension number of the user. You can then set up a personal PIN number. You click on Save Changes. Now, your staff members, they can go to the user portal and change the PIN numbers for their conference room. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. Actually, here, when you first enable it, it looks like this. Basically, the system says, okay, what devices am I going to ring? Right, so then you say, okay, I want you to ring here and here. And what it defaults to is something like this. Oops. Right, okay, it says, okay, you said you want these two devices enabled now. How much time should they ring for? Again, along the top, you got these timestamps. Default's 120. So just like in groups, right, you can click distribute, right? And I can click and drag, and I can change the order and click distribute again if I wanted to. Or I can extend the sliders and have both phones ring the whole time. Now, if this user is in a group and a call comes to them from the group, both those phones are going to ring at the same time, because groups do not use the follow me settings. All right, music on hold. Users, you can have users have their own hold music if you want them to. Just upload a file, .wav, .ogg, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. And then there's customized call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this. And basically the system's saying what calls you want us to record. So inbound, internal, right? That means coworker Bob called me. Right? Inbound external means customer Mary called me. Right? Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob. Right? Whereas this outbound external, I called customer Mary back. Or we can have all four. You click on Save Changes, and then the call recordings are just at recordings.virtualpbx.com. So you can access those, download them, etc. Your call recording storage will vary by plan, as well as what the overage is once you go over that. So you'd want to check with our account services team to make sure what your storage amount is and what the overage is, or if you need to change plans because of that. All right. Next up, we have voicemail boxes. So here you see the voicemail boxes on the account. The ones that are associated with a user have information here in this third column. You can create your own voicemail box up here. Just give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you click on Create New Voicemail Box. So you would create your own voicemail box, for instance, for like your ring groups or for your queues. Right, since your staff members, you probably created it for them when you created the user. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the wrench icon. And if you go to advanced, let's start with greeting media. So this is where you can upload media files for the voicemail box greeting. All voicemail boxes have a media file and a temporary file option, right? So the media file is the default. If you have something selected here, it will play all the time. Now, if you do select something under temporary, this will supersede the media file, right? So like that out of office voicemail message saying, hey, I'm out of the office on vacation from blah, blah, blah to blah, blah, blah. You can put that in here. When that time ends, you set this back to none, and then the normal media file would play. For a voicemail box you create on your own, right, you'd definitely want to make sure you upload a file. And then you want to go to recipients. Now, your user voicemail boxes already have one recipient built in, right? Because they have the email address used for login, so they already have one recipient. For a manually created voicemail box like this one, you want to click on add a recipient and put an email address here. If you want to add more, you just keep on clicking add and add an email address one at a time. And then you would click on save changes. So once a created voicemail box has a greeting media and recipients, then you can go to options, and then you can click here on already set up. And then the other options that come into play again are the attach the message to the email, right, which you would want for your recipients. Because this is a manually created voicemail box, you might more strongly consider doing the delete after notification, since it can only hold 100 messages. The other thing that comes up, this announce only mode, this is so you can have a voicemail box that just gives out a greeting, right? So like hours of operation, it won't accept an inbound voicemail because all you want it there for is to give people information. All right, next up is advanced routing. Oh, this might take a little bit to load because it normally does. And you see here I've got direct inward system access. What that does, it allows a cell phone or landline user to call into the system and log in over the phone. Then they can make an outbound call, and when they make that outbound call, it's going to show your main company number, not say your cell phone number. So what you would do is you would click on this, you would click on enable. Now if you leave it just as this, you have a PIN number here. You can set this up as a menu option under your virtual receptionist or auto attendants, right? So then your staff members hit that menu option, the system will prompt them to enter this PIN number, and then they'll hear dial tone, and then they make an outbound call. You can edit the settings, so you can change the PIN number if you want to. You can also add an extension number, and then click on Save Changes. So now you have the option here of having it as a menu option or as an extension number, right? Then the system will still prompt them to enter the PIN number. They make an outbound call. When they make that outbound call, again, the outbound caller ID going to be this phone number under your company caller ID. It won't be your personal cell phone number. Now, by default, even on new accounts, the DISA feature is not enabled. That's because there is potential for fraud. If you're not paying attention to your call logs, someone could be able to figure out your PIN number and start making outbound calls on your account, and you would not know about it immediately, right? Most people wouldn't notice until they get the next invoice and they're like, hey, why do I have so many minutes used? All right, call logs. This shows your call activity on the account. Go to this month. The little left-facing arrow, right? That's an outbound call. Green arrow to the right, that means that's a call coming into the system. If you click on it here, you see the call came in on what phone number, and then was offered to these various devices.
and then you see here the call connected to this last device for 40 seconds. Little fire hydrant icon up here, it allows you, it creates an email for you and sends it to support@virtualpbx.com. It has the technical details of the call, but in that body of that email, I would suggest including your experience or what you didn't experience, right? Like your phone did not actually ring, or you had bad audio, or what have you. This will let us give our support team more information to work with. You can download this file. It's a CSV. You can also, as you scroll down, if there's more calls, the system will load more up, and then you can scroll further down. You can also set up a custom date range and then download that as well. All right, next up we have feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these, namely the hot desking ones. So these are basically VoIP phone, predominantly based dial pad key combinations to make use of different features of Dash. Now, this information is available on the support pages. Right? There's a feature codes document. There's also the phone commands cheat sheet PDF, which has these plus a brief description of what each of them does. So I usually find that pretty useful for people. All right, so that's the dashboard. So let's go over to ACD queues. Now, ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution, right? This is a call center feature. Depending on your plan, standard queues are either $15 or $30 per month per queue, although I would strongly suggest verifying that with account services because the plans may have changed on me. There's also what we call Pro queues, which last I saw start at $99. They have some more features for that. Now, basically, you would click on Add New Queue. I'm going to just click on a gear icon here of an existing queue. So you give the queue a name, and then you have the option to give a queue a phone number or an extension. You can have one or the other. Right? It can still be a menu option off of your virtual receptionist or your auto attendants. But in terms of direct access, you can only have either a phone number or an extension. Next up, you have the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, the pull down is not working here. Most idle means of your staff members who are in the queue, whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes in. There's ring all on the standard queues, which means it rings everybody. Round robin, which will equalize out over time. Then you have least calls, which is the least amount of connected calls, right? So say Mary has spoken to 2 people, Bob has spoken to 5 people. Next call comes in, goes to Mary because she's had the least connected calls. Now, there's also least offers, which is a combination of missed and connected calls, right? So let's say Mary's been offered 20 calls, Bob's been offered 10 calls. Under least offers, next call that comes in goes to Bob. And in those last 2 scenarios, right? Least offers and least least offered and least connected, or least calls. Let's say Dylan logs in a couple hours after Bob and Mary. He gets the next call that comes in, and he will continue to do so until another staff member either logs in or until he equals either Bob or Mary. Now, likewise, if call comes in, Dylan's on a call, and another call comes in, he's not going to be offered that second call. It's going to go to one of the other people. Hold treatment. You can upload a file, right? .wav, .ogg, .mp3 under 1 megabyte recorded in mono. On the Pro queues, you can have multiple media files play, right, in sequence. They also have the option to announce position in line and announce expected wait time. Whereas in standard queues, you just have hold music. Queue timeout measured in seconds, how much time people can wait on hold. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of people who are already talking to your staff members, right? So if Bob and Mary are talking to 2 people, then 4 other people can be waiting on hold. Now, timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if you have no staff members logged in and a call comes into this queue, the system will treat them as if they already hit this 2000 second timeout. Escalation queue, this allows you to select a secondary queue, meaning if your staff members are all busy, the calls will flow into the secondary queue to be offered to additional staff members. The escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 2000 seconds is reached, where do you want to send the call? Right. This is a pull down. Go back up the top. So I can send it nowhere, meaning the call just simply ends. I can send it to one of my other attendants. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to the smart directory. I can send it to a group. I can send it to a media file. Again, not recommended. I can send it to a voicemail box. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you're making use of the escalation queue, right? So call comes into this queue first and then routes to the escalation queue. The system still keeps track of this original timer off of the first queue the call came through. So once 2000 seconds is reached, no matter where this call went, let's say it went to even a third queue, right? The system says, oh, your 2000 seconds is up. I'm sending you to this voicemail box on the original queue that the call came in on. Right, agent behavior. Agent recovery time measured in seconds, usually anywhere from 0 to 30. This is basically after a call ends, or I should say after a queue call ends, the system will not offer this agent another call from this queue for whatever time amount you put in this case 30 seconds, right? So Mary's on a call, the call ends, the system will not offer a call from this queue for 30 seconds, right? That gives her time to have a sip of water, finish up her CRM notes, or what have you. Now, force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if an agent misses the call, the system will put them in away mode, and meaning they won't get any more calls until they mark themselves as available again. And then agent connects timeout, measured in seconds. This is how much time the system tries to reach the agent's device, right? Right now, queues, you can only accept calls on a VoIP device, so 20 seconds is typically plenty of time. And then you would click on save. So once you have a queue created, over here on the left, you can click on the members icon, right? The person with the headset. The call center members here, this is all the people I have available that I can put into a queue. It doesn't mean they're in all of my queues, right? They're just, I can separate them out piecemeal if I want to. If I click on manage members here, now I see the people on the left. These people are not in my queues at all, right? They don't have access. They can't be in a queue. If I want them to be in a queue, right, then I could click on their name and click on add as members. And now that puts them onto my members list. Right. Likewise, if I say, oh, okay, your role changed, you're not going to be in a queue anymore, I can click on their name and remove them from the queues. All right. So once you've assigned people to be in queues, you can click on a queue here. And I can see, okay, Michael is ready in the queue and he's been in here for quite some time. For like the start of my day, right, I would log into dash.virtualpbx.com because I typically use the website more than the feature codes. I would click up here, I'd click on ACD queues to take me here. Then I click on begin session. Now, you notice I've been put in here, but I'm red because I'm still away. My little phone icon here, this allows me to choose which device I want to take calls on. You do want to specify a particular phone to have calls sent to you on. And once you set it once, then you'll have to set it again. Then when I'm ready to take calls, I just mark myself as ready. And you notice now I turn green. And I have a timer going here for my total time logged in, as well as missed and, or connected and missed calls. In terms of adding staff to a queue, if you click on agents, right, so now these are the available people that I've made in queues, and then I can assign them to the queue itself. Once you have agents assigned to a queue, right, if I click on managers, now I can choose which of my staff members are managers. And then click on save changes. Now, when it comes, like if it's my lunchtime, I can mark myself as away. It should turn red. And then at the end of my shift, I just click end session. Now, you do have feature codes that you can use from your VoIP phones, right? *20 will log you into the queue. *21 will mark you ready. *22 marks you away. *23 logs you out. In terms of your little status icons here, if you're blue, that means you're on an inbound call. Yellow means you're on an external call, right? So like an extension to extension call, or you made an outbound call. And then gold means you're on wrap-up time. So yeah, so staff members can mark themselves away, log themselves out, right? Versus groups, once you're in a group, you're always in a group, right? You can't log out, you can't mark away. It's one of the advantages of groups, or queues over groups, as well as those different routing strategies. All right, next up we have blacklists. This is a feature included on all plans. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are preventing from connecting to your system, right? So they're not allowed to call. You click edit blacklists, and then if you don't have a list, you would just click add. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. You would give it a name, and then the first thing you have to decide is, are you blocking anonymous inbound calls, right? That means if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID, you turn this on, they're not going to be able to connect. They get a busy tone. And then here you click on add number, then you put +1 area code and phone number, and then click add. And you keep clicking add until you're done with all the phone numbers you want to block. Once you're done, you click on save, and then you go back to settings, and then you want to make sure your list is over here on the right under selected. Once they're under selected, these lists are in use, meaning the phone numbers on these lists, when they try to call any of your phone numbers on your account, they get a busy tone. Right? So they can't connect, waste you and your staff members' time, or harass you. Dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to change, or allows your VoIP phone users to change their outbound caller ID basically on the fly. But you have to create rules for them. And we'll go here to this first one here. So what I said here is I created a feature code *71. So VoIP phone user picks up his phone, hits *71, enters the area code and phone number he's gonna call. When he does that, this phone number here, that shows up as his caller ID. Right? Not his default, not a main company number, just this phone number. And that will happen every time he hits *71. The other thing you can do is under here is instead, whenever a VoIP phone user dials a 408 phone number, they instead, on their caller ID, they show this phone number, this 408 phone number, right? So it looks like a local call to the person you're calling. The phone numbers you can select, these are phone numbers that are on your account, right? So if you remove a phone number, then it's not available for your the dynamic caller ID. All right, next up we got the fax manager. This allows you to see the fax activity for various users or various fax boxes, as well as the outbound fax status. You can also see the email to fax logs. If you had an entry here, there would be a little eyeball icon on the far right that would give you further details about what happened with the fax. Next up, we have the monitor. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? So green, waiting for a call; blue, on an inbound call. Actually, red, marked away; yellow, external call; and then gold on wrap-up time. You can also see who's if there's any parked calls and the parking spot number. You can also see active calls that are going on. You have an option here to look at just devices, see who's available and who's busy, etc. Number manager. This just takes you to your spare numbers, so you can either buy, port, or remove phone numbers from your account, or flip over and see what numbers are in use. The recordings manager. So by default, this will send you open up a new tab and send you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. If you've enabled or linked your account with AWS for storage, then this would actually show your calls, the recordings, and then you can, I believe you can still listen to them that way. But basically, it's a window into what your AWS storage has. But by default, for most accounts, it just takes you to the Recordings Manager page. Oops. Reports, this is advanced reporting. This is plan specific. This allows you to create your own reports to see what your call activity is like. It's a lot more detailed than the call logs. You can see like call segments for like a queue call, for example, to see, call was offered to Bob, to Mary, to Dylan. Oh, Dylan picked up, and then you can see how long he talked for, that kind of thing. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager, so you can see the various voicemails on any user. So you see here, I have several voicemails on this user. Now, as an admin, if I click on this box, I can move a voicemail to a different user. Right, I can set it to a different voicemail box. I can also change the status of a voicemail. You see the date and the time, the phone number and who it came from, the phone number they dialed, the duration. You can listen to the file, you can download the file, etc. Webhooks, this links Dash to other software. If you don't have a webhooks here, you would probably want to talk to our sales team. They have more information about webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see examples of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then we have the user portal. So every user has their own user portal. Right, so in this case, I can see my voicemails, the date, the time, phone number, duration. I can play it back. I can listen to it. If I click on the icon here, right, this is your sorting options. And then this, I can change my status. Notice as a user, I can't move a voicemail to another user. That's only something an admin can do. Users can see their own call history, both inbound and outbound, and if they're connected. They can see their fax history. The contact list, this is just everything within the Dash account, right? So other users, their extension numbers, groups, etc. This is not something a user can add to on their own. So like your sales staff could not add their client list here. Next up, we have the conference tab. So over here on the right, this is where your staff members would set up their own PIN numbers for conferencing. They're both their PIN for themselves, for the moderator, as well as for participants. And then these options down here, right? So you have the option to deafen or mute a person as they enter the queue, the conference. And then down here, do you want to play entry and exit tones? Up here, you can add someone to an existing conference, right? Invite one of your other Dash users to a conference. You can then lock a conference. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody, and you can end a conference call. When you're in a conference, you also have the ability to mute a specific person, right? So mute a participant as well as kick a participant. Then we have settings and devices. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Right, so they come here, put a check mark, and then give the information of where they want it to go. Likewise, I can turn it off and click save, so now calls are going to my normal phones. And that is everything. Let me go back to the dashboard here. I'll give it a minute in case anyone has any questions, and we'll go from there. right, not seeing any questions come through, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. We'll be back next week on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.